Bine v-am găsit, stimați telespectatori, începe Fără Prejudecăți la televiziunea română, emisiunea care a fost premiată de către Organizația Națiunilor Unite în anul 2016 ca model de incluziune. Eu sunt Ovidiu Damian și vă mulțumesc pentru că sunteți alături de noi. Vă reamintesc că emisiunea Fără Prejudecăți este interpretată și în limbaj mimico-gestual. Asta pentru ca mesajul nostru să ajungă și la persoanele cu deficiențe de auz. În același timp, o variantă accesibilizată pentru nevăzători se regăsește pe platforma Mixcloud. Invitatul meu de astăzi este Michael Carroll, un fotojurnalist american de a cărui activitate se leagă viața copiilor orfani, viața copiilor cu dizabilități din România. Thank you very much, Michael, for being with us today. Welcome back to Romania. Welcome to our TV show on Prejudice. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Well, it's an honor to be here with you. Thank you.
I was telling to our viewers that you came for the first time in Romania after the revolution, as you say, after Ceausescu fault.
Right.
How come? How you choose Romania, or how Romania chose you? Please explain to us.
It's the latter. Romania chose me. I had proposed a story to Life magazine about following how aid gets delivered to different countries. So you don't, people give money or the government gives certain aid, and I wanted to follow a package or a bike or something. I was originally thinking of Nicaragua because there we were giving a lot of aid to Nicaragua. So I just wanted to see how it began, how it transported, then how it ended, and who got it. Did it actually go where we thought it was going to go? There was a news report in the New York Times about a pediatric AIDS outbreak in Romania, which was unusual.
It was that moment when, let's say it very frankly, when the medical system got those children infected.
That's exactly what happened. It was in the blood supply of the country. And these children were either got it through needles that were not disposable. So they were reusing needles without sterilization. Part of what I did was a story of two children who died, who were twins. I was there for the second child's right before she died, or he died, and then I went to their village for the funeral. And both of them got the SIDA through their childhood inoculations for mumps and measles. Also, in the orphanage population, they were giving the orphans small doses of plasma to boost their immune systems because they were feeding them on about 1,100 calories a day. In that was this unseen epidemic. It was not allowed to be seen by the government. The government would not admit that it was happening. And it was only because of a man who was at a virological institute next to the hospital, Victor Babiš Hospital in Bucharest, that was testing the blood supply because all these children were dying in the hospital. And they wanted to find out why. And it was the mortician who basically organized that. And they then realized that these children had AIDS. So this was reported, so I came to do a film, or I came to do a report of my own on how true this was. Where was it? How bad was it?
Let's go back to that time. How did you find Romania at that moment? Was it that bad as you expected?
Yeah.
Was it worse?
Well, it was worse than I expected. I didn't really have a good idea. I've been to Europe many times, in Western Europe, and I'd been to Prague, but I really hadn't been to a country like Romania. Always feeling like we had gone back a century.
You went back in the US, but you couldn't just send your footage and continue your life like it was just a regular visit into a foreign country and to abandon the subject, because that's how it starts, actually, your connection with the social services in Romania.
Right. Well, when I graduated from college, I taught 7th grade in Jersey City, New Jersey. I had 46 kids in my class in a 7th grade self-contained classroom. They're mostly black and poor. So I had an experience, and I'm from Pittsburgh originally. I'm from a black neighborhood in Pittsburgh. So I had an experience with people who were left out. My class, my 7th grade class, 46 students, only 12 of them were age appropriate. All the rest of them were too old for the grade. They had been social promotions. So a third of them could barely read, and 3 or 4 of them were completely illiterate. And I learned so much in that time about children and about myself that it stuck with me my whole life. I spent 2 years teaching in this school. So when I came to Romania, I didn't come initially to do a story on children. I came to do a story on a problem that was unique in the world. And it was an opportunity as a journalist to do something like that, to be in a country for the first, because but your country had not allowed free access.
Exactly.
So we had free access because we were constantly harassed, but we had free access, So then when I came back to the United States and I saw what I had, and I was kind of shocked. When you're in an experience like that, like the journalists now are in the Ukraine, you're in an experience that's so intense that you really can't process it. And then you get home and you start processing it. You really process it at home. And so I started processing it at home, and then when the story got published, it was an outpouring of people calling me, wanting to help these children. You remember, this was 1990. We're not as used to abuse and discrimination as we are now. We pretty much accept it in lots of ways. That's why I think the war in Ukraine has been so interesting, because it's brought out that humanity in people that was, below the surface. That was always there, but the war just brings it out and allows it to breathe, essentially. And my story did the same thing. It allowed people to care. And their caring has propelled me to do something. Without their caring, I probably wouldn't have done anything. I would have done my job, and then I would have gone to the next job. But in this case, there were so many people.
Not in this case. The things were different.
It became a lifelong, it became another career, essentially, for me.
How was for you to come back, to set up an NGO, to start doing an organized work? Because I suppose that at that moment, you were not able to find trained people knowing how to take care of those children. Maybe the authorities were not very happy to collaborate with you. How was this story? How it developed? How Inocenți NGO came up?
Well, I think we developed like most crises develop. So the crisis happens, people respond to the crisis, and they try to bring aid of some kind. In my case, I brought pharmaceuticals, antibiotics, because there was no oral antibiotics in the country, syringes, needles, masks, gloves for the medical staff, all the things that I saw that were lacking. Then I tried to bring physicians with me to have them take a look at the problem, because I'm not a physician. This is like way out of my area of expertise. So I brought people with me all the time, because I was over here doing other stories. I wasn't just doing this story. This story had passed, so then I was working for other publications in the United States doing other stories, but most of them were around healthcare and around the social structure of the countries. After a few years of that, it became really clear that that wasn't changing anything. You can give people all the stuff, but you're not changing their life. You needed to change the modality of the society, and I can't do that. So what I did is I asked people, well, what can we do? What is it that we can do besides bringing supplies? And I'm one of the guys who was part of this group in New England said, well, we should start a child life program. And I didn't even know what it was. But I thought, maybe we can. And we did. We met Dr. Georgescu at IOMC in Bucharest, Alfred Răsescu Hospital. He was acceptable to the idea that we would start a playroom in his hospital, because they had 40 children who were abandoned in his hospital. And he recognized the need for these children to have some human compassion. And that started we started going from there. And then we started looking at, we started seeing what the needs were. We brought Americans initially, and not just Americans, but Australians. We did sort of like a Peace Corps program, which was effective, but long-term was not sustainable. We realized that the investment had to be in the young people in Romania. And so by the year 2000, we were investing in people to change the society. Not us change it, but them change it, giving them the tools. The philosophy of the group of people in New England who were working with me and supporting it financially, we believe that need should be the critical factor in how we responded. So it wasn't like we decided that what the need was. The need came to us, and then we tried to fulfill that need. We started in Bucharest, and it became really difficult in Bucharest in the 90s. I mean, Bucharest in the 90s really didn't change from the 80s, in my opinion. So the infrastructure really wasn't there. And I thought, well, we needed to go, maybe if we went to a smaller city where the people had were much more engaged in their civic world rather than in the big city.
Orphans and abandoned children were everywhere.
Were everywhere, yeah. So the need was everywhere in the country. There was thousands. I mean, it's, a lot of people believe, and the numbers are, because the government didn't keep records, they kept records, but they were not visible. There were about 400,000 orphans in the country, which is a significant part of the population.
Because of the problems with the contraception methods that they were forbidden in the Ceausescu's time.
Right. You basically almost doubled your population in 10 years, so there were a lot of reasons for that happening, but the effect of it was that there were all these excess children that the people couldn't take care of, and the government encouraged them to put them into institutions, which is the worst possible place for a child to be. So we saw that, so we went to Bistrița, because Bistrița, we thought I went and visited it, I talked to the mayor, we talked to the director of the hospital who knew about Dr. Georgescu, that's why so we sent out a call to the Rotaries in the country, and we said, how would you like to have a child life program in your town? And only 3 responded, and Bistrița was one of them. So I went to 3 total, and Bistrița seemed to be the right place for us. The people were welcoming, the doctor in the hospital, Dr. Buddha was very welcoming. So then, okay, now you have a place to start. And then the children were taken out of the orphanages and put into foster care, and we were part of that process. So most of our services in Bistrița were focused on foster children who were leaving the institutions, who almost all had disabilities. So we became organized around that issue. Disabled children moving into homes with foster parents where they were going to stay for at least till they were 18, and some of them for the rest of their lives.
I think there are thousands of children you helped so far in those 30, more than 30 years.
Yeah.
There are dozens of specialists you helped to be trained and everything. Do you keep those numbers? Do you keep track of those numbers?
Well, we estimate that we touch the lives of about 3,000 children a year through the various programs. We operate in 3 spheres mostly. We operate in early intervention, a sphere of where you're trying to analyze the children's disabilities or cognitive disorders or whatever before they enter into the school system.
As possible from the very beginning.
From the very beginning, so you can remediate it quickly. And then we have an after-school program, which is for children at risk of dropping out. I think it's 8 years ago, there was a report on by the UN about Romania had the highest dropout rate in 4th grade. In Europe, it was about 20%, which is pretty unusual. And usually it's in high school you have that dropout rate. But Romania didn't have a high school dropout rate, but it had it at this age where children went from from a primary school to sort of a middle school. And a lot of kids got lost in that shuffle there. And so we created a at-risk program in a school, because this is where a lot of the young abandoned children came from this. We did a study, that's how we found out about it, in Bucharest. And so we then have we have, I think, 5 after-school programs in different parts of the country focused on different populations, but with the same goal as preventing these children from dropping out of school and getting them to their high school graduation, and thereby giving them a chance to be part of the larger society. And then we have a medical program, which is hospital-based, which here in Cluj it's a mental health program. We're at the hospital here, and we work directly with them, and we provide services to the patients who are needing the services of the Mental Health Institute.
How do you see Romania now, or how do you see any evolution, any, change in terms of acceptance, in terms of inclusion?
It's not just Romania, because I saw it in other Eastern European countries, and I think it's a byproduct of a socialist system, not socialism, but a socialist system, the communist system. where the individual really doesn't matter much. So you have this concept of they're hidden. So here in your city where you now have curbs that a wheelchair can go across, and at the lights they have beeping so that blind people can get across the street, that didn't exist for the longest time. And it doesn't exist in most places in Romania. So even people who are doing good don't understand the needs of people with handicaps. And handicapped children are still a big part of your population that are not being addressed well enough, but probably not well enough in any country, but certainly not well enough here. And our job and our mission is to address that issue through our programs. We invest in the young people in Romania, so almost all of our staff is young. All of them are committed. They have not only an intellectual capacity, but they have a social obligation. And once you can get past that, you can have a democratic society that is caring, that does provide for the individual, that does think of the larger picture, and doesn't always think of how much I'm going to make or what I'm going to get. We have lots of volunteers. I mean, we have 500 to 600 volunteers who actually spend time. They don't just go and show up. They actually work. And here in Cluj, we have a great program with the School of Psychology. We get lots of volunteers from the school who then work in the mental health clinic.
Invitatul nostru, doamnelor, domnilor, Michael Carroll, ne-a adus această carte și am să-l întreb, vreau să aflăm mai multe despre ce este vorba. I was just telling to our viewers that you gave us as a gift this book. What's about? It comes together with the film.
The producer, director, and inspiration behind it is Don Hahn, who did Lion King and Beauty and the Beast. So he's a well-known Hollywood producer, director, animator. He's a terrific man who cares. And so he basically funded the film, and then he asked us to do a companion book for the film. So that's what the book is about. It sort of follows the film and explores these issues that we're talking about now, and tries to look through instead of the lens of the camera, in a film way, it looks through the lens of the camera as a documentary book way. So it's two ways of seeing the same thing.
And I know that for this time you came to help in the problem of the refugees, of this situation that couldn't let us just watch all the suffering, all the problem that those people, that our neighbors, our brothers experience.
Our staff is primarily psychologists, social workers, and educators, I would call them, people who are interested in education. So we were ready for the crisis. We didn't know it. We weren't planning for it. Romania's done a fantastic job, as has Poland and all the rest of the republics that surround the Ukraine, has done a fantastic job housing, feeding, and clothing the refugees. But what really needs to be addressed is their trauma. How do you do that? Well, you have to have people that understand trauma. So we created a program which came to us from Dr. Gene D'Angelo at Children's Hospital in Boston. He's the chief of pediatric psychology, and he's also a professor at the Harvard Medical School. And he said he and his team of people have worked in refugee crises throughout the world. So he said, what do you need? And I said, well, I don't know, but I think we need training. I mean, one of the things we need to do is put a program together how we can address this problem, our foundation can. We have this expertise. How do we apply it to the need that's there? And so they've created a first aid crisis and trauma program. And it's a continuous program, so it'll go on for years, because it'll follow the refugees as they either stay or migrate or integrate into the society. And so that's what our staff is working 2 jobs. They're working their regular job, because we haven't forgot about the Romanian children that we work with. And now they're working with the Ukrainian children and the Ukrainian mothers. And my goal here was to come and interview mothers to get an idea of put a face on this crisis. What do you need? Where are you from? How are you doing? What does your child need? And then we get together with the staff and we say, okay, this is what they really need. So then we address those needs, and we can address them in many ways, but we have to know what it is that they need. And they need everything, but what is it that they need right now? And that's what we're trying to deal with. And we're doing a pretty good job of it. So I mean, I'm really proud of the staff.
Flexibility, that's what I hear from all these programs you've set up here, and you are able to remodulate them or to recalibrate them in terms of other needs, of different needs that they are coming, they are arising from the problems, the diverse problems with the children, with the refugees right now, and that's a great, I think, asset in our social field and social work. And we are now close to the end of this interview, and I would like to know now from you, because you've told us all the things you brought here in order to help our colleagues and our professionals to help further. I would like to ask you now, as a last question, what have you learned from this experience of more than 30 years in this connection between Michael, his team, and Romania?
Well, I've learned to be patient. You learn a lot about yourself. And especially when you get older, you start realizing what really matters. And family is first. So your family matters more than anything. That's really, your job, it's second. But then there's this other world out there, the world where you can contribute that doesn't reward you. There's no real reward for that. So you're not doing it for a reward, you're doing it for some kind of inner peace. And that's really why you do it. So, and you see that in a lot of people. People give for a reason. They don't, a lot of people have plenty of money. It's like, for instance, we need an office here in Cluj. We don't have an office. And now we have all of these children that we're working with we could address that problem better if we had an office where we could take care of them and do interviews with them and do therapy with them and run our clinic, but we don't have one, we can't afford one. So then I have to think about how to afford one. So that sidetracks you from what really matters, which is just helping people and doing the right thing and being good. As good as you can be, and realizing that's enough.
Thank you very much for being with us today in Unprejudiced TV show, and thank you very much for all your efforts, for all your contribution to a better life for those persons who managed to get in contact with you in those years.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Vă mulțumesc și dumneavoastră, doamnelor, domnilor, pentru că ne-ați urmărit. Fără prejudecăți, la final rămâneți alături de programele televiziunii române. Eu sunt Ovidiu Damian și vă doresc tuturor o zi excelentă. La revedere!